Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to TFL's new series, TFL 101. And today we're going to be showing you the difference between all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. And to help demonstrate four-wheel drive, I've got Tommy and his classic Jeep Cherokee. Tommy, are you ready to go show them the difference between old school and new school?
Right now on Goldmine Hill.
For the sake of this tech demo, we're not going to be concerned with approach or departure angles or even ground clearance, but tires are always crucial. Luckily, both of these vehicles have relatively off-road worthy all-season tires.
4x4 versus all-wheel drive. Both accomplish a similar task, providing engine power to all four wheels, but do so in very different ways.
So in this Cherokee, I have a traditional four-wheel drive system, which means I have to select which wheels have power essentially. So starting off, I have a two-wheel drive system. I can go into four-wheel drive high, that splits the power front and back. From there I have a four-wheel drive full-time, which is a little bit unusual on the Cherokee. It actually almost acts like an all-wheel drive in that it has a potential to provide each and every wheel power when you're on the road.
Here's the major difference. Four-wheel drive systems, in contrast to all-wheel drive systems, make use of a selectable transfer case with a low gear range. A low-range gearbox affects the ratio between the engine speed and the wheel speed. Effectively, a low-range transfer case increases torque at the wheels at low speeds, allowing for more precision and control in difficult off-road situations, or for that stump-pulling power trucks are known for.
Then I have a neutral, which is pretty exclusive to a low-range transfer case. That's for if you're towing it out of like a stuck situation, for example, or behind a RV, you don't actually spin up the transmission. And then from there, I have four-wheel drive low. And this is really my big advantage in this Cherokee, is the torque multiplication in low. Yes, it's still four-wheel drive. Yes, I don't have traction control to distribute the power left and right, but I'm not putting a lot of strain on the engine or the transmission in low range. I'm just slowly crawling up the obstacle.
Tommy's Cherokee has an old-school 4x4 system with a low-range gearbox that increases available engine torque at a ratio of 2.72 to 1. Think of low range like riding a bicycle. When you use a lower gear, it's easier to pedal, but you move slower. When you use a higher gear, you can go faster, but it's harder to pedal. Rock crawling does not need high speed, so the control and precision of a low-range gearbox comes in very handy.
This is Goldmine Hill. Now I know on video it looks like a dirt road, but trust me, it isn't. And we're lucky to have stage 2 where the car kind of balances on two wheels.
A transfer case found in a typical four-wheel drive vehicle has different settings to send power where needed. For typical day-to-day driving, power is sent to the rear wheels in two-wheel drive mode. When the surface gets slippery, the transfer case can be manually set into four-wheel drive, giving the front and rear axle equal power. When the terrain gets steep or rocky, four-wheel drive low can be selected to help the vehicle slowly crawl up or down an obstacle. The Select Track system in this Jeep has another setting, 4x4 full-time. In this mode, the Jeep can be driven all the time in four-wheel drive as there's no power lock between the front and rear axle.
For the sake of comparison, I'm actually going to start in two-wheel drive, see how far up the hill I get before I have to go into four-wheel drive. Well, I'm actually really surprised. I made it up the entire first stage in two-wheel drive. I had a decent amount of grip. Now on stage 2, I'm going to try it in two-wheel drive. I know it's going to get stuck, so I'm going to have to go into four-wheel drive. Now the difference between four high and four low is a topic of debate and misconceptions, because sticking the transfer case into four low is going to greatly multiply my torque, but it's not going to necessarily give me any more traction. I don't have any electronic aids or lockers on this Jeep, so I'm actually a little bit nervous about this.
Here we see Select Track in action. First, Tommy puts the Jeep into two-wheel drive mode and gives it a shot. As you would expect, he pretty much instantly gets stuck because there's no power being sent to the front axle. Then Tommy goes ahead and switches into 4 low to engage the front axle, giving him more usable grip. But because this Jeep has open differentials in the front and the rear, you can see that two tires are spinning, the front left and the rear right. But once he tries again with a little bit more momentum, the Jeep was able to make it up the second obstacle without much problem. To demonstrate how all-wheel drive works, we've placed our long-term all-track in a tricky spot on Goldmine Hill. All-wheel drive systems, like in this VW All-Track, also send power to all four wheels, but don't have the added versatility of a low-range transfer case.
Here we are at stage 2, and I had to work hard to get it up here because I don't have a low range, and I'm forcing to slip the clutch a little bit to actually have enough RPM not to bog down the engine. I've got it set in off-road mode, which means that the car will now use its software to figure out where to send power.
Volkswagen's all-wheel drive system is called 4Motion. In the all-track, this system uses a Haldex coupling, which allows for different amounts of power to be sent to the front and rear axle depending on the available traction. It does this through a series of wet clutch plates that can be used to adjust how much power is sent to each axle. During normal driving, 90% of the power goes to the front wheels and 10% goes to the rear. However, this system can change that ratio in an instant if it detects loss of traction in any of the wheels. Let's slow down this video to watch 4Motion trying its best to send power to the wheels with traction. To control traction, the Volkswagen system brakes the wheels that don't have traction, which forces power to the wheels that do have traction. You can see the front right wheel spin and then stop, and then spin and stop continually. This is 4Motion at work. When the car notices that the front right wheel is spinning freely, it applies the brakes to send power elsewhere. The Volkswagen still made it up the hill, but it had a much harder time due to the lack of a low-range transfer case. Those are the major differences between all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. A selectable low-range transfer case is the easiest way to tell without knowing anything about a vehicle.
Tommy, I think you'd have to agree that it's amazing what modern technology can do for traction.
You're right, but I think at the end of the day, a low range with a transfer case is still the way to go when you're off-road, because you're not burning up your clutch, and I'm not burning up my transmission with that low range.
Yeah, I think for this kind of off-roading, four-wheel drive is better than all-wheel drive. Now, come back next time for TFL 101 when we show you the difference between two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, four-low, and four-low with a locker. As always, this is Roman.
And Tommy, we'll see you guys next time.
The other cool thing about this Volkswagen is it has hill descent control, so I'm doing 1 mile an hour and the vehicle is doing all of its own braking. It's like a serious off-roader, except of course for the lack of approach, departure, and ground clearance.